learning Beraishis. We were in the second day of creation, and we were looking at a Pachad Yitzchak, Rosh Hashanah, Maimar Yud Gimel. We explained that Bechira, the concept of Bechira, the laying of a foundation for Bechira, was created in the second day. As we say so many times, not only do the crocodiles and the tulips and everything else need to be created, ideas need to be created. We don't come up with ideas that God never thought of, chas v'shalom. So ideas are created. Some of the most fundamental ideas are created with such specificity that we can point to when they were created. Our footnote talks about Bechira. Bechira, the source material for Bechira, was created on the second day, when the Rebbeinu Shalom said, Yehi Rakia b'Soch Hamayim, let there be a firmament, whatever that means. He separated this, what was a glob of water, and he said, Yehi Rakia b'Soch Hamayim, let there be a firmament in the middle of the water. So, some water went up, some water went down, a firmament came between them. As we learned in the Rashi and Beraishis, the distance between the water on earth and the firmament is the same distance between the firmament and the water above the firmament. Now, what's holding the water above the firmament in place? The water on earth is being held on earth. It's being held in an ocean. What is holding the water that's above the firmament, above this quote-unquote sky? What's holding up that water? Nothing. It's benes, Rashi told us. They're standing there. The water is hanging up there, benes. The point of all this is, on the second day, God created in his world, he created something called the above and something called the below. The Elyonim above and the Tachtonim below. And through this, he created Mayim Elyonim, the water above, and Mayim Tachtonim, the water below. By virtue of now having in the Bria this concept of above and below, we now have the foundational material for Bechira. Bechira is a guf that's created on the sixth day from the dust of the ground below, a neshama that comes from above that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts into that body. The body now has something from above and something from below, and that something from above, the neshama, is driving and motivating a person in one direction, and the guf, the afim and adama, is motivating the person and driving him to a different set of goals. And as we learned in the Ramchal's Das Tavunos, the neshama is working and working to try to harness the guf and make the guf understand that it's better for both of them, for the neshama and the guf, for the guf to listen to the neshama and follow the neshama's guidance. And that's the whole discussion we had for many, 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 many days, the Das Tavunos, about the work of the neshama and the guf. But the neshama and the guf, one's from above, one's from below. That's what creates the conflict in life. That's how when we resolve these conflicts, we resolve them through al-bechira. Do I want to do guf? Do I want to do neshama? That's how we resolve the conflict. So the foundational material for the guf and the neshama, something from above and something from below, comes from the fact that there's something above and something below. Above and below were separated on day two. Therefore, the source material for Bechira is created in day two. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we learned, separated the water above from the water below, we learned the Rashi in Parshas Vayikra. Rashi did not quote the entire Medrash, but the entire Medrash tells us that the water below started crying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Anan be'inan l'meheva kama malka. What just happened to me? A millisecond ago, I was part of one big glob of water that was in front of the Kisei HaKavod, and a millisecond later, I've been separated. I'm below, and my old buddies, the water that I used to be connected to, is up there in front of the Kisei HaKavod. What just happened to me and how did it happen? And the water below is crying. Again, as we mentioned, Tosfos in a number of places, Chul and Daf Zayin as an example, we say the water cried, doesn't mean that the water cried. It means that there are malachim, mazolos, angels in heaven. There's the angel of water, there's the angel of fire. These are the angels when we say that they quote unquote complain or object. These are what we're talking about. We're not talking about the physical water. At any rate, the water is crying, Anan be'inon lehever kama malka. I want to be next to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Rabbanu Shalom says, I'm going to console you. We're going to take water and we're going to pour it on the Mizbeach, on Sukkos. Besides wine that's poured on the Mizbeach every day with the Korban Tamid Shel Shach and the Korban Tamid Shel Bein Habayim. On Chol HaMoed, Machlokes is how many days, but on Sukkos, we're going to pour water on the Mizbeach. And not only that, but salt, which is a byproduct of salt water, salt is going to have to put on everything that's brought to the Mizbeach, whether it's the animal for the korban, the parts of the animal, they're going to be burnt on the Mizbeach, al kol minchascha, al kol korbancha timlach melach. We read the pasuk, I believe, last week. It's an emphatic pasuk. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in Beraishis Vayikra, put the salt on everything you bring to the Mizbeach, and don't forget to put the salt and everything on the Mizbeach, because this is a covenant of salt. Covenant, Barista Melech, it's a covenant, and make sure you put salt on every korban. The Torah, the Rabbanu Shalom says it 3 times. Do it, and don't forget to do it. And I want you to know that this is a covenant I have with the salt. What's that covenant? It's a covenant from the 6 days of creation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said the water will go on the Mizbeach on Sukkot, and salt will go on every korban and every mincha. The water that goes on the Mizbeach is Mayim Tachtonim. This is water that's gathered. We learned a bit about this when we were learning Masechta Midos, and we learned Masechta Tamid at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the Simcha of the gathering of the water. There was a whole process. They danced and sang the whole night in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Ezras Noshim. The Leviim were on 15 steps singing the 15 Shir Hamalos, and then towards the morning a procession left the Beis Hamikdash. They went to get the water, collect the water, and then they came back in a procession into the Beis Hamikdash, and they brought the korban, they poured the water on the Mizbeach. It was a whole, and this is Simcha. What we call on Simcha, we call Sukkot the Man Simchaseinu. It's a time of our joy. This Man Simchaseinu comes to its pinnacle in the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. The whole Sukkot is Man Simchaseinu, but the pinnacle of the Simcha is Simchas Beis HaShoeva. And the Rambam talks about this at the end of Hilchos Daled Minim. This is the pinnacle of Simcha. The pinnacle of Simcha is what? Let's go draw the water from below, the below water, and let's pour the water on the Mizbeach. And this is such a joyous, unbelievable occasion that it is the pinnacle of Zaman Simchaseinu. It gives so much happiness and so much joy that we call it Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the Simcha of the Beis HaShoeva. And we usually refer to it as Beis HaShoeva, as the Simcha of the drawing of the water. There are Rishonim that bring down that Simchas Beis HaShoeva means Shemisham Shoavim Ruach HaKodesh. People who participated in the Simchas Beis HaShoeva and the Beis HaMikdash, they were zocher to get Ruach HaKodesh. I believe the Medrash that the Rishonim bring down, it says that Yonah became an Avi. Yonah attended a Simchas Beis HaShoeva, and he drew so much Ruach HaKodesh in the Beis HaMikdash from attending the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, he became an Avi. So besides Simchas Beis HaShoeva, meaning the Simcha of drawing water, it also means the Simcha that you can participate in which you can draw Ruach HaKodesh. So we're talking about a momentous time of the year for a Jew to be in the Beis HaMikdash, the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. It brings personal happiness and joy. and it brings spiritual happiness and joy in the sense that a person can gain Ruach HaKodesh. What exactly is happening in the Beis HaMikdash when you draw the water and you pour it on the Mizbeach? Why is that the pinnacle of spiritual and physical happiness? Zaman Simchaseinu Simchas Beis HaShoeva. So let's think about this for a moment. The Mayim Tachtonim are the waters below. The Mayim Elyonim are the waters above. The Mayim HaTachtonim are crying, I want to be up there with you, Rabbeinu Shalom. I want to be right up next to you with the other water. I want to be right next to the Kisei HaKavod. If you remember, when we were learning Rashi about Beraishis Bo Elokim, it says God created the world, but uses the word Elokim, Midas Hadin. And Rashi comments that the original plan was that God would create the world with the Midas Hadin, and then God recognized that the world can't exist on Midas Hadin, and therefore he took the Midas Harachamim, compassion, and added it to the Midas Hadin. And we talked about the idea of, or the wrong idea, that the Rebbeinu Shalom thought first that din would work, and then he realized it's not working, so he had to change the plan. Chas v'sholom, it doesn't mean that. We talked about that. We learned another Pachad Yitzchak about that. The point of that Pachad Yitzchak was that one interpretation of the Rashi is forgetting about God changing his mind. He didn't change his mind. Let's leave that alone. But one shot of the Rashi is that God he willed to create the world by Midas Hadin. Midas Hadin means strict judgment. You do something wrong, you're punished immediately. End of story. It's almost a world in which there's no tshuva. You did something wrong, you're punished. Move on. Don't do it again. Rachamim is the process, the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim, for example, Erech HaPayim. Once Rachamim comes into the picture, a person does something wrong, HaKadosh Baruch Hu waits to judge the person and gives the person the time to do tshuva, etc. So the simple interpretation of Rashi is God willed the world to exist on din, but then God decided, again, forget about the change of mind, there's no change of mind. God decided that the world can't exist just on din. Why? Because people are going to sin. And if every time a person sinned, he gets struck down by lightning, then there's not going to be a world. So the first way to understand the Rashi is God created the world with din, and as soon as you violate something, you're punished immediately. And then God decided the world can't exist like that, because man can't exist in that kind of world. He needs some time to do tshuva. And so God put in compassion into the world. Shot number one. Rav Hutner gives us a different shot, and he explained there, we learned the Pachad Yitzchak why. It's a little deeper than that. God willed the world to be run through Midas Hadin. Somebody does something wrong, he gets punished immediately. God decided the world couldn't exist like that and put compassion into the world. Why? Because he wanted a world of Bechira. A world where someone does something wrong, he's immediately struck down. Bechira slowly ebbs away until there's no Bechira left in the world. A person is walking, a Yid's walking in the street, he lights up a cigarette, struck by lightning. And then you witness another Yid a week later, striking up a match on Shabbos. Lightning strikes him. In the middle of the summer, lightning strikes. Everyone you see that strikes a match on Shabbos turns on the engine of his car on Shabbos, lightning bolt hits them, and they die. Eventually, you come to the conclusion, hey, you don't create fire on Shabbos. God punishes immediately. The more God would run the world like that, immediate punishment, the more there's no Bechira. Because once I see what's happening, it's so clear that God is running the world. The clarity by which I can see God running the world becomes so clear to me that I have no Bechira. If I have a real Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid, I see God right in front of me all the time, that reduces my ability to have Bechira, because I'm in a state of awe 24/7. I see God right in front of me 24/7. Now, there are people that got to that madrega. We talked about when we learned the Pachad Yitzchak, David HaMelech got to that madrega through his own work. That's fine. But you have to get there through your own work. You work up a whole life of conquering the Yetzer Hara, and at some point, the Rebbeinu Shalom says the reward for all that work of conquering the Yetzer Hara, I will finish the job. Zap, no more Yetzer Hara, you're free of the conflict. Very few people ever get to that point. But God wouldn't create a person from the get-go in such a way that the person wouldn't have Bechira. Why? Back to the Das Tavunos. The Rebbeinu Shalom created the world lahetiv. He wanted to give good to creatures, to his Bria. And he wanted to do the good in the most perfect way. And the most perfect way to give someone something good is to let him have his Bechira, because then he earned it. He made the right choices and he earned it. If he didn't earn it and everybody a bunch of robots without Bechira, everybody's getting free lollipops. So Rebbeinu Shalom created the system of Bechira so that he can be mative. So what's the tachlis of the Bria at this point for us? Hatova. In order for there to be real Hatova, man needs Bechira. In order for man needs the Bechira, he needs some space. If God is clearly in front of him from the moment he's born, he has no Bechira. So God, you want to call this a tzimtzum again, that's fine. God withdraws. He goes into a state of a level of Hester. He hides himself so that a person has an area in which he can live and make choices. Should I, shouldn't I? Without the awe of God being on him 24/7. So he has an area of Bechira, which, like David HaMelech, eventually Baruch Shalom says, you've done a great job. You don't need to live the conflict anymore. Gone with the Yetzer Hara. The point of this is that what Rav Hutner is saying in that Rashi is, when you are 24/7 in the presence of God or very near God, you have no Bechira. And with no Bechira, there's no Tachlis HaBriya, because there's no Hatova. The water that got split, the water that went above, is the water that's 24/7 in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That water represents a Bria that has no Bechira. It's always in front and in the presence of God and shudders and is in awe of God. That's fine. But that's not the Tachlis HaBriya. It's the water below that's not in front of God as close as the water above. And it's crying, I want to go back to where I was. What is that water really crying about? I want to go back to be right in front of you and feel the awe of being in front of you and being close to you all the time. Beneath the surface, what's that water saying? I relinquish Bechira. I don't want to be part of the lower world where people make choices. I want to be in front of God 24/7, where I'm in constant awe and I don't have to exercise Bechira. The Rebbeinu Shalom said to the water, listen, the Tachlis HaBriya is not the water that's above. The Tachlis of the Bria is the water you are. Don't cry to me. What are you crying to me about? What are you crying to me about? You represent the Tachlis HaBriya. You are the water below. And that water below that's not in awe of me 24/7 will have the ability to have Bechira. You represent Bechira. And therefore you're the Tachlis HaBriya. And the reward for that is, on Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the water will go to the Mizbeach. And the reward for that is on every carbon. What does carbon mean? The word carbon means karev, to come close. Every time a human being wants to come very close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one of the things he does is he can bring a carbon toda, a carbon shlomim, a carbon ola. He can bring a karban. He can bring something close. So the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying to the water below, you don't understand. By being below there, you represent the greatest gift in the Bria, Bechira. You're not in front of me 24/7. And man is going to represent this Bechira, which you're giving, which you represent. And that's going to be the greatest joy in man's life. Man has the potential to reach the greatest levels because of his Bechira. He's not going to be a robot. And not being a robot is represented by you, water below. And that is going to be the greatest spiritual and physical joy for a human being, to understand that he's not a robot, that he has choices to make, that he can grow during his lifetime. You represent that Mayim Tachtonim. And to prove that you represent that, we're going to put you on the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is where Karbonos are brought. That's how you get close to Ribono Shel Olam. The waters above don't have to work to get close to Ribono Shel Olam. From the 6 days from the second day of the 6 days of creation, they've been in front of me, and they'll be in front of me for eternity. They're done. There's nothing for them to do. They're there. The water below wants to get to the Mizbeach. The water below wants to become salt on a carbon to get to the Mizbeach. You, water below, represent the Tachlis of the Bria. And because of that, let's now go back. I believe that Heath Shmuel, again, we thank him for his constant working with us, uploading. I believe Levi is doing uploading, and Heath is allowing us to use his Zoom and sending out the handouts. So thank you to everybody who's working on this. We should have Hatzlacha b'Gashmis u'Ruchnis. So in one of the handouts that was sent out this morning is the Pachad Yitzchak that we started last week, which I again summarized today and went into a little more today. And we're on, it's Pachad Yitzchak Maimer Yud Gimel, page Kuf Zayin. At the top left-hand corner of the page, it says Kuf Zayin. And I'm reading from about 1/3 of the way from the bottom of the page, about 2/3 of the way down. There's, in the middle of the line, there's a word dafka and a period. And then there's pen underlining. And the next word is nechemosam, the consolation. Nechmosam shal hamayim hatachtonim, the consolation, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu console that water below, he alidei hachnasasam l'soida shel midas hakavod. The water below represents now covered. It represents man's ability to give honor to God. How do you honor God? You honor God through your Bechira. Robots cannot give honor to God. And I'll repeat the pshat that the Abder Rav Zechron Tzaddik Livracha gave. In Kedusha, we say, Kevodo Mole Olam. God's honor, prestige fills the entire world. Mesharsa Shalom Zelazeh. But the Malachim ask each other, Aye Makom Kevodo. Where is the place of God's honor? Now, when we focus on those words, what exactly did we just say? Kevodo Mole Olam. God's honor and prestige fills the whole world. We say that as humans. And Misharsa of Shalom Zelazeh. The Malachim are asking each other, where is God's honor? What do you mean, where's God's honor? It fills the world. We know that as human beings. Kavodo Mole Olam. So the Abder Rav gave a mashal, which is what Rav Hutner is alluding to here. You have two kingdoms side by side, Kingdom A, Kingdom B. In Kingdom A, the king makes a rule that on Tuesdays you cannot wear a pink tie. Whatever reason, Tuesday you can't wear a pink tie. And naturally, the people in Kingdom A don't wear pink ties on Tuesday, because if you wear a pink tie on Tuesday, off with your head. So everybody is observing the Tuesday no pink tie rule. The people in Kingdom B who are not subject to King A, They hear about this rule, no pink ties on Tuesday, and they start discussing it. And they say, wow, there's an ingenuity here. We understand why the king of Kingdom A did this. And we are going to make the same rule. We are going to create the same rule voluntarily on our own. We're going to create the rule here in Kingdom B. Where is the place of God, of the king of Kingdom A? Where is his true place of covet? In Kingdom A, where he imposed the rule, or I will chop your head off, they are observing the rule because they fear for their lives. That's a yira. Kingdom B, which said, oh, this is ingenious. We're going to voluntarily accept this upon ourselves. We're going to exercise our decision-making process and voluntarily accept this upon ourselves. The place of the king of kingdoms A covered is in Kingdom B, where people said this king is a genius. This is an unbelievable rule, and we're going to live by it in Kingdom B, even though we don't have to, we choose to do so. When you choose to do so, that's a covet. So our footnote now continues. So the Shalmidas HaKovethu, the foundation of the concept for our purposes, the concept of covet, ki hakovet ha'ola elea min harchogim, covet that's given from people who were distant from the person, yotzer hu lo hisnasus amuka le'ein aruch me'asher covet ha'ola min hakrovim. People that were always loyal to the king. From day one, they've been always loyal to the king, and they remain loyal to the king. They're loyalists, that's fine. People who tried to revolt against the king because they thought he wasn't a good king, and then their eyes opened up and they said, what a mistake we made. He's such a wonderful king. We realize now, through thinking about it, he's a wonderful king. That is where he gets his covet from. And our footnote says that in covet, getting covet from those who were at a distance and come close is greater than the covet for those people who are always close. The covet that the water above can give God is very limited. They've been in front of God since day 2 of creation, and they'll always be there. They represent no decision-making process. They were placed there by God. And they're God loyalists from the second day of creation, no choice made by them. But the Mayim Tachtonim, the water below, when that water below goes, and it's the water that represents Bechira, it's distant from God, it's making choices. When that water goes on the Mizbeach and gets close to God, when the human being, when the Kohen in the Beis HaMikdash takes that water and pours it on the Mizbeach, the water from below is going on the Mizbeach to serve Hashem. That water below that's so distant from above is going to be brought close to Hashem. Those karbonos, those animals on planet Earth that are so distant from Hashem are going to be brought as karbonos, carbon, to be brought close to Hashem. We're taking things that were at distance and we're bringing them close to Hashem, and that teaches us that although we may be distant from Hashem in terms of we're not malachim, that's okay. It's okay to be human. It's greater to be human than to be a malach. There's a famous machlokes who are greater malachim or human beings, but we're human beings. That's unbelievable. We don't want to be robots. The challenge of Bechira is the gift of Bechira. The challenge of Bechira is what gives us the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. It's the physical and spiritual joy of life that we actually, although it creates conflict for us, it creates this unbelievable heightened sense of who we are. We are not robots. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us space to make our own decisions. You know what that means? What kind of chesed that is? A human being king, lahavdil elef alfei avdolas. It's very rare that a human king in those old days of monarchy would say to people, you can do whatever you want. He doesn't say you can do whatever you want. He says, this is the rule. If you don't follow the rule, off with your head. the Rebbeinu Shalom opened such a wide area and said, you are part of creation, and you can even affect creation by what you do, and you're going to have an area in which you're going to decide what you want to do. There'll be ramifications for what you want to do. But I want you to be happy, joy, rejoice in the idea that I've given you this space in which you can make decisions and bechira for the ultimate purpose that I can give you schar, as the Das Tavunos explains. This is the simplest base Hashel Eva. Yeah, everybody wants to be close to God. That's a great thing. But you want to get close to God by working to get close to God. You don't want to be lifted up by God and brought to God in some kind of fashion that's above human work. You want to get there because of your work. And then you elevate yourself. And then you've earned it. There's a famous Maisa, a well-known Maisa about the Vilna Gaon. Vilna Gaon had the option, according to the way the story is told. It's a very famous Maisa. Our Footner told the Maisa over in Yeshiva. I heard it on a Shavuos. Like many great tzaddikim and Gaonim, Malachim or other Eliyahu Hanavi would come to these Gaonim and Gedolim and offer them to teach them Torah. And some of them accepted the offer. We have from our understanding, the Beis Yosef wrote the Kesef Mishnah to explain the Rambam, and the Beis Yosef learned with a Maggid. Someone was from heaven was sent to the Beis Yosef to learn with him. And in fact, the Beis Yosef wrote a sefer available in good Hebrew bookstores called Maggid Mesharim. The Beis Yosef wrote down for weeks what the Malach came down and taught him about the Pashash HaShavua. So obviously a lot of Kabbalah, but it's printed. Beis Yosef wrote down what he heard the Maggid, the Malach, tell him. Ramchal learned with the Maggid, with Leo. Okay. When the Vilna Gaon, and they have their own sheet. When the Vilna Gaon had this offer, quote unquote, to learn with a Malach that's being sent down from heaven, the Vilna Gaon rejected the Malach. He didn't want to learn with the Malach. And the Vilna Gaon's shita was, I don't want anything spoon-fed to me, because then I didn't earn it, I didn't work on it myself. I want to become who I am because I'm working on it myself. I don't want lollipops. Now, at the end of the day, if the Malach had learned with the Gra, could be the Gra would have known more Torah. It's hard to imagine, given that the Vilna Gaon basically knew everything. But if you learn with the Malach, could be the Vilna Gaon would have had deeper understandings. But that came free. It's a freebie. It wasn't worthwhile to the Gra to elevate himself through a lollipop, through a gift. He wanted to, elevate himself in this world through his own work. And that's the greatest gift and the greatest joy to a person. He worked himself and elevated himself on his own work. So this is the gift of Bechira. And this is the gift that has its celebration at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Simchas Beis HaShoeva, we have the opportunity to rejoice over that Mayim Tachtonim that represents Bechira. And through our Bechira, we can give covet to the Rebbeinu Shalom in a way that Malachim can. A Malach is a robot. How does a Malach honor God? And therefore the Malachim say, I am a Kom Kavodo. Where can we honor him? We're a bunch of robots. But we human beings, we can give God covet. So when we make the right choices in our own space, we're giving God covet. Nothing's been forced upon us. We're giving him covet. This whole idea is rooted in the second day of creation. When the Rebbeinu Shalom separated the water above from the water below, the result of that was there was an above and a below, from which we then get neshama and guf on the sixth day with a human being who has this conflict and bechira. On top of that, we now understand that the bechira that's represented in that the human being represented that mayim hatachtonim, the water on earth, like human beings on earth, that would love to always be in heaven next to God, but that's not the tachlis of the Bria. The tachlis of the Bria is to have a human being on earth, to face the challenges, and to come out of the challenges stronger through through Torah, through mitzvahs, through understanding the eitzes of the Torah. And that's how we grow, we become bigger. And that's a tremendous covet to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's a much bigger covet than the robots, the malachim. I just want to mention today is Hey Shvat. It's a yard site of the Sfas Emes, the Zechron Tzadik Levrocha, Zechusa Yogein Aleinu. And in this week's parsha, Parshas Bo, the Sfas Emes talks in several of the pieces he wrote for Parshas Bo. He talks about the first pasuk. Hashem said to Moshe, Bo el Paro, I want you to go to Paro. And of course the question is, it should say Lech el Paro, go to Paro. Bo el Paro means come to Paro. Okay. Bo el Paro ki ani hichpadati esliba veslev avodov l'man shisi also say ela bekirbo. Go or come to Paro because I've hardened his heart, so that I can finish him off with the remaining makos. And last week at the Thursday Shir, at the Chumash Shir, the Parsha Shir, we learned through the Rambam, Maimonides Shita, about this whole issue of Bechira. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away Paro's Bechira, and he punished him in the last 5 makos, not because of what he did then, because he had no freedom of choice. It was punishing for him for what he did during the first, the earlier time, including during the first 5 makos, where it doesn't say God hardened his heart. But it says, Bo el Paro ki ani ichpadati eslibo. Go, come to Paro, because I hardened his heart, because I'm going to bring more makos on him. What does that pasuk mean? Moshe Rabbeinu has been told by the Rebbeinu Shalom already that I'm going to harden Paro's heart. Moshe Rabbeinu has already seen the hardening of the heart in last week's parsha. In last week's parsha, the last 2 makos in last week's parsha, Makkah 6 and Makkah 7, the Rebbeinu Shalom already hardened his heart. It says Hashem hardened his heart. Now Moshe Rabbeinu is told, go to Paro, come to Paro, because I hardened his heart. Why? Bo el Paro ki ani hichpadati eslibo. Go, come to Paro, because I hardened his heart to give him more makos. And what do you want me to do there? What do you want me to do there now? Go to Paro and do what? Stare him in the face? What should I do there? So the Sfas Emes says, Bo el Paro, come to Paro. Instead of go to Paro, come to Paro, get close to him. Take a good look at Paro. Ki ani ichpadati eslibo. I want you to understand, Moshe. Even Moshe Rabbeinu needed this lesson. Moshe Rabbeinu, I want you to stare at this person. I want you to understand this person. This person is being stubborn and won't let the Jewish people go. Ki ani hichpadati eslibo. Moshe, I don't want you to think for a moment that this person has the courage to stand up to me, or that this person is actually on his own, through his own bechira, refusing to let the Jewish people go. I want you to understand, Moshe, I am running this so clearly. I want you to look at this person and understand, ani ichpadati eslibo. I am the person, I am the Rebbeinu Shalom person, I am the Rebbeinu Shalom who is running this day to day. And while the Jewish people are getting a bit impatient, as the Gemara in Brachas on Daf Tesam and Face tells us, they're getting impatient. Can we just leave already? In fact, when Moshe Rabbeinu told them, go borrow gold and silver from the Mitzrayim, and we're going to take it with us. And the Jewish people said to Moshe, how about doing us a favor? Forget the gold and the silver. We've been here for 210 years. We've been tortured and pain. Forget the gold and silver. Just take us out right now. Forget the gold and silver. Just get me out of prison right now. Moshe Rabbeinu said, no, we have to wait. Okay, that's a Gemara in Daf Tesam base. Jewish people are getting a little antsy here. Moshe Rabbeinu keeps on going to Paro, and it's all very nice. Dam, Tzvardea, Kinim, Oro, Devesh, Shchin, Borod, in this week's parasha, Arba, Choshet, Mapsachot. Very nice. Why can't we just get up and go? That's a good question. Why couldn't the Jewish people just leave Mitzrayim? And the Rosh Hashanah would bring the Makas on Mitzrayim. And he would punish Paro and the Mitzrayim for what they did. Why do the Jewish people have to stick around in Mitzrayim? Because they needed to watch it. They needed to see that there's a process, a God process. They needed to see that the way Golus goes into Geula is a God-scripted process. You don't walk out and then read about it in the book, the Mitzrayim were punished. You need to see the process unfold in front of you. So the Sfasema says, Bo el Paro, go to Paro, come to Paro, and there's no other purpose here. I want you to see, I'm the one, God says, behind that stubborn heart. I'm the one that's controlling him. He will not let them go. And he's not going to let them go until I say he can let them go. And this is a process that's unfolding. Don't think for a moment that what you're seeing, Moshe Rabbeinu, has anything to do anymore with Paro's decision-making process. He has no bechira. But you need to see this firsthand, that God is running the Geula scripted step by step. And go back and tell the Jewish people, everybody stop worrying, everybody stop getting antsy. This is scripted by the Ribono Shel Olam, and the fact that there's a hachbodas leParo. Moshe Rabbeinu, why can't we just leave already? No, this is scripted by God. And Paro is not going to let you go until God says he can let you go. And this is something we need to understand. Ribono Shel Olam says to Moshe, go and look at this so you can see it happening in front of your eyes. Don't read it in a book. It's happening in front of your eyes. Go to Paro and see what it means when I take control of a person and I take control of the world and I decide when the script is ready for the Yetzias Mitzrayim and the Geula Shalema, which we should be zeicha to b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen. All you that need Zuchusa Yogan Aleinu, Svasem, Zuchusa Yogan Aleinu, Rakol Yisrael Amen, Ishbi Amel Tziyoshe for Klal Yisrael in these very, very difficult times. All you need Yeshua Shav Yeshua, all you need Refuah Shav Refuah, all you need Nechama Shav Nechama, all you need Bracha Shav Brachas, Shefa Toiv from the Ribono Shel Olam for Yidden, for Klal Yisrael. Brachas, Yeshua's, Nechamas, Refuahs can only come through the Ribono Shel Olam when he wants to send it, how he wants to send it. If he wants to use a shliach, only through the person he wants to send it. And when we understand this and we internalize this idea that it's only through the Ribono Shel Olam, and the Ribono Shel Olam is running the world and it's scripted, even in the world of Bechira, we're making choices. The Ribono Shel Olam is ultimately controlling the way the script is going to play itself out. L'toiv lanu, mamish bert, l'toiv lanu l'klal Yisrael, b'tzayin Hashem mamish today, which we say to see the Binyan Beis Mikdash today, bring Kabbanis, bring the Machzas HaShekel. Refuah Shalema, Moshe, David, Halevi, Ben Leah, Refuah Shalema to Yosef Chaim, Ben Shoshana, Menucha, Refuah Shalema, Malka-Liva, Bas Chaya Braina, B'sor Cholei HaKorona, B'sor Shachar Yisrael, Refuah Nevesh, Refuah Seguf, Hashtav HaGalos, My Krib, Lamar Amen. Again, when we internalize this idea of the Ribono Shel Olam, the Gilui HaYichud, we bring this into our lives. We donate it to Klal Yisrael, which we're going to talk about Mi'at Shem later in the month. There's a very big day in the life of the Ramchal later this month, which we'll celebrate, Bli Neder, that we'll talk about. And we donate this to Klal Yisrael, this Gilui HaYichud that we're all doing, so we can bring the Gilui HaYichud together, Ba'achdus Gemura Shalema, to its critical mass. The Ribono Shel Olam can finish off the Gilui HaYichud. We can zeicha to the Geula Shalema, B'tzayin Hashem Mamish today. Everybody, please take care of yourselves. You go where you need to go. You don't know, you don't go. You don't go, you don't need to go. Even when you need to go, you make a cheshbon. When you can go, when you should go, when it's less crowded, more crowded. All these cheshbonis are to keep yourselves healthy. Keeping yourself healthy is a mitzvah. It's not avodas Hashem. The last two Beis Yosefs and Choshen Mishpat, le'es ber hagoylin Choshen Mishpat. We do these things, we're being Mekayim mitzvah, so that we're going to be besimcha physically, and we're going to be besimcha spiritually, to be makabel pnei Mashiach tzidkenu, for a Beis Hamikdash in which we're going to bring karbonis, and we're going to bring a maktas hashekel, and we're going to be zoicha to see a simchas Beis Eva in a Beis Hamikdash, and we're going to have that simcha, a simcha that we never ever experienced. Everybody have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.